Hello, hello. Welcome to Casa Conversations. My name is Aaron, and you can find me everywhere at Armed Atlas. So here's the situation, or the question rather. The SIG P365 magazines, they kind of revolutionized the game when it came to micro compact concealed carry handguns. And then a few other people started copying them, namely Springfield with their new Hellcat series, or I guess it was new at the time. And then, and then we had a lawsuit. See, a lawsuit. Um, and with that lawsuit, of course, there's legal issues, and we have somebody very special here today, Jeremy. Jeremy has been involved in his own lawsuits. We may brush on that briefly. I don't know how deep we can get into that, but he is in the manufacturing business. He makes magazines. He makes AK mags. He makes a few other mags. I wish he made more Glock mags, just because I'm a Glock guy, Glock fanboy, if you will. And we're going to talk to him about his products as well. And hopefully, you guys will stick around for that because I think if you hear some of his stories about the was it 300-pound man who was running in the woods and fell and broke the magazine and he was like, hey, it's covered under the warranty, like stuff like that will make you really like this guy. So please stick around for those stories. And just a quick piece of housekeeping. Apologize, we were late for the live show. I apologize, but I'm here now. We're here. Let's get the show on the road. um, Please keep an eye out for episode 100. It's coming up. I'm going to do something kind of cool for that. This is episode 98. Next week is episode 99. And week after that, episode 100. If you're a big fan of giveaways, I might have something for you. All right, guys, let's get into it. All right. For some reason, I can never figure out this. Can never figure out my intro music, but here we are. Jeremy, can you hear me? Okay.
I can.
All right. Everybody in the live chat, if you could let us know if we're coming through A OK, I would love to get that feedback. That said, bro, thank you so much for coming on the show. We met just for a little bit of background. Was it 2 weeks ago at the one and only GunCon annual event by, I assume, our mutual friend, John of the Gun Collective. And it was a great event. It's been really, really busy. I apologize because you're actually the first show back in a while. So if I seem a little rusty, it's
Oh,
because
you're
it's because
totally
we've been
good,
off.
man.
It's because we've taken a break and I've not really been podcasting much. Although keep an eye out for those in the viewing audience and of course you too, Jeremy. Keep an eye out because we have a upcoming show with Scout, and of course, next week we have the episode with this young lady who is she actually had a spinal injury and she's in a wheelchair, but she's still competing over at Sig Academy and whatnot, and it's just awesome. But I wanted to start the show out with obviously an interesting topic: the Sig lawsuit. You've had your own lawsuit, so you kind of know what the heat looks like. You've been in the kitchen, you know what it's like.
Sure.
What the heck is this Sig lawsuit about? I mean, it's been going on for a while. This isn't news, right?
Yeah, correct. So it actually, I heard perspective from someone who was on the receiving end, and got some more insight there as far as the timing of it. But from what I understand, it was right around Christmas Day, about 3, 4 years ago now, when Sig filed against Springfield, which, candidly was predictable. Um, those of us in the manufacturing space, I don't know how many uh, of my competitors or colleagues, whatever word you want to say, other companies, leadership, closely follow these patent filings. But it's something that I watch closely. It's something that I've invested heavily into, and definitely I viewed as a paid understanding of patents. Um, but yeah, it's been a dispute ongoing for some time, but it really roots back into when the patents themselves got issued. Um, so once they were issued, it was surprising to myself. I can speak for myself as a non-attorney. that the patents were ever issued to begin with in the way that they were issued. Um, I personally didn't think they ever should have been. So then, as from Sig's lens, you can choose sides on this, but once they're issued, you're forced to defend them. Otherwise, there's a responsibility to defend your patents. So kind of it's like a double-edged sword of getting a weaker patent, or if their patent now they could spend all this money getting their patents invalidated, then all that money's wasted per se.
Wow. Okay, so Sig isn't necessarily the bad guy, maybe, kinda. I mean, they did file for the patent, as I guess any responsible inventor of a thing should, probably. Yes or no?
I mean,
I guess depends.
yeah, and I think as a whole level, if we can do like just a quick introduction, like, patents are not one size fits all, right? It's like
Yeah.
saying a patent's like saying a house, right? There's houses in jungles that you and I could put together and it would be deemed a house in what, 40, 50 minutes if we're really motivated, right?
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah. Yeah.
house. And then of course there's homes that, are worth different dollar values and take different efforts. And, there's, you know, people I know building homes that take almost a decade to complete. I'm not personally, but
Right.
a home is not a home. It's not a home. So it's not just what a patent's worth, it's from a commercial value, but also what a patent coverage and what its coverage entails, right? And so you can get a patent on almost anything, is the saying inside of the patent, the intellectual property world. It's just, does that patent mean anything, right? Is it so narrow that the patent covers only a door handle if the door's under 2 feet tall and you know at a 30-degree right angle? Like, what good is that patent, right? If you can't climb through the door, what good is the door handle patent? Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like, if it's a
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
door, so or a square lid on a water bottle, right? Who wants a square lid on a water bottle? So like patents, I think the consumer world sees the word patented as like this universally marginally equal idea, and it's
Yeah.
it's nowhere near that, right? And so what SIG's patents basically and entail is the number of rounds that fit between this angle and here. So it's like a general area. Well, the issue comes in, other magazines historically have that same result. Those other magazines, SIG's argument is going to be they hold more rounds overall, so it's like this limiting factor. But really, the argument would be that would be fell under what we would call obvious in the intellectual property space. Again, just for the audience's purposes, I'm a college dropout, to be very clear about my education. However, significant portion of my net worth is intellectual property, right? So definitely
Hmm.
school of hard knocks. So it's very surprising, because you can't patent something. Like, a reason to not get something patented, it should be denied, is the term obvious, right?
Obvious.
So
Like, what's so obvious about the Sig Mag where it's like, hey, no, like you, why did this go through?
yeah, so I don't know what I have in my box of toys here, but like, for example, this is for reference purposes, if this device has been out there for years, right? In this case, this device is a standard capacity magazine, right, for a full-size gun. And then you just made a shorter version of this magazine, that's obvious, right? You're just taking
Mhm.
something that was traditionally hold, in this case, 17 rounds. The one I'm showing you actually holds 22, but a traditional full-size magazine, and you just go, oh, I'm going to make this shorter. This has been out. That's public domain. There's nothing patentable about this. Just because you made something that's been out there shorter doesn't make it patentable. And that's essentially my argument as to why I think that patent never should have been issued.
Okay.
And they didn't just get
So
one patent, by the way, they got several.
several that to you seem obvious in the legal sense where it is too broad.
Yeah, and really at its core, so, and then it goes back to patenting strategies, right? So someone like myself, who XTech is an innovative company, we are, I would say, if we're world class at anything, or best in the world, arguably at anything, it's about innovating and really coming out with what the world sees as our products is like, oh, that's obvious. I could have thought of that, right? That's the most common response you saw at our table when you look at our stuff. It's like, that's simple, and that's the theme, is simple innovation that
Hmm.
has low opportunities for fail points. But when you get back to patenting strategy, when I go to patent something, I'm thinking about efficiency, I'm thinking about strong merits, I'm thinking about patents that mean something at the end of the road. I'm not just trying to collect patents and say I have X number of
Sure.
dozens of
Well,
patents, right?
let's try to maybe break this down in a way that makes sense to people
Mhm.
who don't understand patents.
Yeah,
This guy, right? Like
yep,
you said, efficiency, strong merit. Like what? Name a patent where it's like, yeah, like clearly this changed the way people think about a thing, and it's patentable.
yeah. I mean, I would say for simple terms, geez, that's like such a broad statement, but I'll
Sorry.
get there in 1 second. You're good. Um,
I mean, do you have anything
I
that you
mean,
patented that you're like, hey,
oh
this
yeah,
is clearly this
yeah.
revolutionizes a thing?
Something really simple here, just I mean, just for simple understanding, right? And
Yeah.
I think revolution or not, it's like that should be patented. You've got our, our most obvious patent to me is our two-piece grip, right? Everyone had AR grips at different angles, and we came out with a grip that you can adjust the angle of it. The world had never seen anything like it. There's nothing, close to it, especially at the time we invented it. And you go, this changed the world. Did I save, starving kids in Africa? No, but it's something that's obvious. And when you look at it, I say obvious from a standpoint of patentability, right? Nothing's been out there like it. It's totally unique and novel in the utility of what we did to solve it.
And just for the audience who listens on the audio version of this show, can we explain that two-piece grip just in some detail? Because
Oh,
I
sure.
see it's got some teeth on one end and I guess a receiver on the other side.
Yeah, so we call this smaller part the mount here in my, what would be the viewer's left side. And then this part we refer to as the grip. But essentially, I was developing and working on designing and manufacturing pistol grips for several different companies. And the early topic when you work on a pistol grip at the time back in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014 was what angle are they going to make the grip? So like when you talk about grip, you think about sizing, you think about texture, but every single time the topic of angle would pop up. And so um, my obvious thought was why not make a grip that allows you to choose your angle versus have to make a defined angle. And then, so really this one, you just set the angle you want and tighten it down. We've got three alignment guides in the back, so you can go from 17 to 25 to 33, and you just use your traditional mounting screw. We ship with our own and a hex key, and you tighten it down, and you can beat the crap out of it and it won't go anywhere. So that's our grip there. We've sold hundreds of thousands of these guys since they've been out. Um, but I think back to your,
Now, is that, but is that patented?
it is. There's a utility patent on that. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so that
Yep.
means other
And
companies can't use it, or because I'm seeing where maybe another company like Strike or something like that has something
yep.
similar. And at what point is it encroachment? And what point is it like, hey, I got to sue you as per the law?
So what's my headset just disconnected? This is fun. Let's see here.
Testing 1 2. Now I'm just going to read through some of these comments while we're getting that set. I do see. Thank you, DJ Play Nice. I see where you're helping out the show, moderating. Thank you so much. And Scout Concepts, welcome to the show. I see you. Siege Talks, letting us know that we're having great audio. And Scout Concepts mentioned that Strike Industries seems like they have a similar grip. Um, and of course, DJ Play Nice has posted in the live chat some of the dates that we're dealing with in regards to the some of the dates that we're dealing with in
And
regards
then
to
we
the
had
patent that Sig was complaining
a
about
lawsuit.
in their suit.
See,
So
a lawsuit.
there's a few things, of course. Let me see if the audio's back. And oh man, looks like we lost the guest for just a second. He'll be back. He'll be back. But just want to take a second and just say thank you guys for being here live. I know that you could be anywhere right now, but there's a few of you in the live chat right now, guys. I'm truly blessed to say that I'm here. Um, and while we're waiting on Jeremy to come back into the stream, I did just want to take a second because you may have seen some of the branding switching up. Gun Club Radio, Cosmic Conversations podcast. For 3 years, it was Cosmic Conversations podcast. Now it's Gun Club Radio. Um, yeah, that's we're changing some stuff up, and I'll get into that in just a second because it looks like Jeremy's back in action. Let's see. All right, I think we're back.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Perfect. All right, I'm not sure if that was me or what that was. Everything just froze on my end at first. I thought it was a bad headset, but turns out it wasn't.
Oh no.
Um,
Testing one two. Okay. Think I think we're good to go on this side. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah,
we
so
were
jumping back
talking.
to
Yeah, go
your
ahead.
question as I
Yeah.
heard it was, so I can't comment particularly on products that may or may not infringe on a patent of mine for legal reasons, but the idea of having a patent that, has breadth to it, is that someone that makes a product that infringes on that, you have the right to pursue them, and you also have the responsibility if you want to have your patent held up to pursue them. So, that's really all I can respond to with that particular manufacturer you brought up there. That's my hands are a little bit tied on that
Ah, too bad. Well, I'm gonna take that as a yes. That you are in a vicious lawsuit, and my lawyers are contacting your lawyers. You didn't say that, but I'm just gonna assume.
one. Right.
Um,
But back to like, patents that have tremendous meaning would be like the gasoline engine, right? When it first came out, right? Combustion engines, that was something that I would argue changed the world, right? Um, and one thing about patents is they have a clock on them. So you can't have an indefinite patent. You can have an indefinite trademark so long as you filed and registered it, but you can't have an infinite patent. And I think that's good. I mean, the idea is, if Aaron comes up with an idea tomorrow, when listeners come up with an idea tomorrow, the intention behind the patent system is that they can file a patent, have protection, have a chance to gain market share, establish market share against those that are established in the market with their improved invention. But they don't get to have a monopoly on the market forever. And so where that comes in to play that, is meaningful for society is like a cancer drug, right? Or insulin is another example. It's very popular,
oh,
right? There's a
insulin.
patent on insulin, and that if they can charge $80,000 a shot, well, what good is that for society, right? And so competition's good over time, and so in general, patents have a life of about 20 years, and so to me, 20 years is enough time to figure out if you have a good idea or not.
I mean that there is some merit to that statement, at least just from an outside perspective. That 20 years is enough time to figure out if your product's good and establish some sort of market dominance. Let people know that you exist and sell your product to the masses. Get rich and make another product, right? I mean, that's just from an outside perspective. I've never invented anything that went to market or anything like that. Looking in, I assume that you should be able to accomplish these things. Obviously, I'm sure there's some billionaire CEO out there looking for five more bucks who's like, no, we need to keep our insulin patent forever, or like trademarks, or different intellectual properties like Steamboat Willie, or the original Mickey Mouse version. That's now in the public domain. Winnie the Pooh is now in the public domain. But if you have Mickey Mouse with gloves, that's not public domain, and they'll sue the pants off of you. Don't you dare use Mickey.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I mean it's interesting topically, and it works both ways, right? I mean, there's patents that I'm waiting on expiring to where I plan on making competitive products. I won't say what those products are necessarily, but it works on both sides, right? The clock helps you and hurts you as a company that produces things and as someone making products.
Can
Because
you?
sometimes there might be an, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if you could maybe name a patent that you've maybe seen that's expiring that you're not going to pursue, because I don't want you to give away, show your hand too much.
I mean, that I'm not going to pursue. I mean, something candidly like the bump stock, right? I mean, the bump stock's got one that's, it's been out for a while. I have no interest in pursuing that product. I like that product exists. I like the recent court, happenings around the legality of it. I personally don't see the bump stock. I think every American should have the right to own them. But I personally don't see it doesn't fit in alignment with my brand as making a tool to do a job. I see it as a fun novelty. So that would be an example of a patent that, is coming up in the nearest future, but have no interest in pursuing
I mean,
making it
fair
competitive
enough. I
product.
do see. that you're wearing the XTech tactical shirt. I mean, you've shared your thoughts on the Sig patent and they have such interesting products. Um, and one of the things that you shared with me is you want to make products that last a lifetime, but not just my lifetime, into my kids' lifetime and their kids. Like generationally. Like we have guns
Yeah,
from back in World War. Name a World War, right? The first one that still exists and
yeah,
still function. Obviously, you got to do a little, give it a little bit of love, and it'll run nicely. Um, but on the other hand, there are guns that feel like they have planned obsolescence built into them. It's like, is this a F-150 from 2016, which is going to go bad in
right,
4 or 5 years? Or is this the original
right.
F-150, which is going to last forever? Maybe you got to change some parts and make sure it's running good, but it'll last forever.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to me, I like to be, my grandfather, in this present tense, I don't share a lot of what his final political views were, but I saw him as a man of legacy. I saw his actions he took as something thinking way bigger picture and forward thinking. Um, Maybe he should have had some more fun in life, but the longest, he became the youngest police chief in the state of Michigan's history, from my knowledge. City manager, served on some bank boards. He wasn't a overly wealthy guy, but did well for himself. But he was active in every community he did, and he really, my takeaway from my time with him was legacy. It's what where are you going to be known as? And I've adopted that mindset and try and have my products speak to that, where, you know, like the investments I'm making today, I want to benefit not just my children and their children, but my family. I didn't grow up wealthy. I grew up in a safe environment, but I'm looking to, make smart moves that benefit generationally and have legacy meaning. And I haven't met someone yet that doesn't embrace the idea of someone taking up a challenge they set on themselves, now referring to the challenge I put on my own self, of making products that offer uh, that same benefit. Because in my head, our rights are always going to be under attack. I hope at some point they're not, but it's a lot harder to take something away from someone than it is to prevent them from acquiring it. So if I can make products that you can buy and pass down to your kids and their kids and their kids, you're doing something with a legacy impact on your family. And so that's what drives me. That's the core of our brand. And we're committed to doing the best we can to make everything we sell fit into that bucket.
Well, I can definitely appreciate that because, as you know, there's a lot of Chinesian products out there, and not in the sense that they came from China, because I don't necessarily care where the product came from, but in regards to the overall product quality and the thought process and the love and intentionality behind said product, versus just something that's made for 55 cents and sold for 500. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think, yeah, absolutely. And I listened to a couple of your episodes earlier today, and one of them, wasn't the topic of influencers. And I'm going to plug something in real quick. I don't want to be on the edge here. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem, man. Yeah, so real quick, I just want to give a quick shout out to some of the comments coming through. It says, Common 380 says, monopolies destroy innovation, which I think I can get with that. And then Siege Talk says, patents are also a way to create temporary monopolies, which has advantages and disadvantages, which I can agree with that as well. Now, um, Jeremy, you just got up and grabbed something. Can we discuss what you just grabbed, or what you got for me?
I got a whole box of stuff next to me. So I was actually just plugging my phone in to make sure that we are on the clock here.
Got you. No,
Um,
you're okay.
But yeah, and I would 100% agree with that statement. I mean, the intention of a patent is to create a monopoly, right? And that whole goal is to give you a chance to bring it to market and establish it before you have competition. If we didn't have that in place, it would discourage innovation. Um, and so, I mean, to kind of wrap up I think, to give context here, it's my first time talking about this in a while on the SIG patents, by the way. So I'm kind of like you, a little rusty on it, but
No, you're good.
um, the strategy going in. So, and it's not a good or bad thing. It's a healthy debate thing, right? I mean, there's some other healthy debates out there. So to me, I'm not trying to describe SIG as some evil company. I don't think they are, and I appreciate their stance of. I think you could argue their strategy is very greedy as a company. And if Ron Cohen's listening to this, he might hear that, he might not, he might be offended by it, but you know, their goal is to own the whole ecosystem. They want every dollar as a core brand related around your purchase of firearms and ammo and holsters and optics to be spent with them. Um, where I think a more fruitful, a more um, beneficial environment for consumers is, you know, to have more open source where, like we're seeing around their modules, right? They're even seeing the benefit. I would argue a lot of the popularity of the 365 is because of where the elements aren't limited by SIG. For example, the grip modules. I think the 365 is the number one pistol in America because of the grip modules in a sense, right? I mean, it's kind of become its own thing, right? And it's cut up to Glocks at lightning pace because of these other companies like Icarus and Wilson Combat and Juggernaut and Mischief Machine and blah, Shallow Tech and all these different guys, right? So, um, but back to patenting strategies, I go into a patent going, okay, can I get, do I believe I can get an issued patent that's meaningful, that has protections, that limit my competition from competing with me? Um, you know, After first asking the question, will this patent matter? Does this innovation matter? Right? Because to me, at the core, I only want to make things that matter. And then it comes down to, what's the cost of this patent? And a huge element of patent cost is the phase what's referred to as prosecution. And that's the bouncing back and forth between the party applying for a patent and the patent examiner. And you have some ability to predict, although that's kind of like predicting who's going to pick up the phone at the IRS. You don't know how that call is going to go, but an experienced patent attorney can kind of help you understand what that's going to look like. And so every minute that patent attorney spends bouncing back and forth with that prosecutor's billed at, typically $500 to $1,000 an hour. So you can spend a lot of money weakening your own patent, and part of that arm wrestling and how much you're willing to fight with those prosecutors is, the result is having a better patent or not at the end. So a company like mine isn't going to pursue, I'm not going to pursue a patent where I don't really feel it checks those boxes of does it matter? Does the actual issued patent give me something that in court would be upheld and defensible? And what's it cost me? Is it money well spent? Whereas if you're SIG and you have the budget SIG has, you're just going, you could take a strategy. One could read in between the lines and say SIG strategies become, let's just collect patents as a way to keep everyone else at bay. And because we can. And I would argue that's in a way using the system. Is it legally wrong? No. Is it legally prohibited? No. But part of that strategy is relying on the budget they have being tremendous and guys like me having limited budgets to, be the ones to try and disprove it. And that's where this Springfield SIG case is really interesting to me. In our world as the gun industry, it's almost like the Apple versus Samsung case around the iPhone, right? Now you've got two companies that have huge budgets and both can afford the best attorneys in the world. So it's been interesting to follow that case, although very little's been shared publicly about it. It does appear at this point that it is going to trial, which is I'm kind of excited for, honestly.
Now, how much, I mean, as somebody who's been embroiled in scandalous patent lawsuits, right? And I'm dressing it up for the TV, right? Um, as somebody who's had to defend your patents or maybe have been maybe a larger company said like, "Hey, Mister Man, I see your magazine that you're creating there, and it looks a little bit too similar to ours." Just like hypothetically, like in an overall pattern per se, something that how can you patent just a look or an aesthetic?
Hmm.
That doesn't seem right. Anyways, but let's say that happened hypothetically. At the end of that lawsuit, and as I assume at the end of the Sig versus Springfield lawsuit, they're going to, or the question I guess is, will the parties be forced into pretty much staying quiet about the thing where I'm not allowed to talk about what happened. You're not allowed to talk about what happened, but you get to keep making your thing. Or now you have to pay us back for every single magazine you sold. In the Hellcat versus not the Hellcat, but the Springfield versus Sig or Sig versus Springfield case. A portion of the sales going forward, or you can't manufacture the Hellcat anymore. Like what generally would happen at the end of these things?
Yeah, so generally, if it's a big company versus a small company, it almost always ends in settlement.
Mhm.
And generally, if one side knows their case is really weak, it ends in settlement. Is the general rule, and that's kind of what Congress, as you know, patent laws are federal laws, and that's Congress's rule is kind of like, hey, if people know they don't have anything, they're going to drop the case. No one's going to waste good money after bad, is kind of the premise of our legal system in the US, is
Mhm.
the conclusion that why would anyone spend, I mean, the average IP dispute in the US is now over $1 million per side.
I
So
don't have that kind of money.
how many parties have that? I mean, that's not, we now look at our, look around our Rolodex and be like, oh, I know, five or six guys, Johnny, my friend, the landscaper, drives a Ford Raptor and lives in $1 million house. Johnny doesn't have $1 million. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So like having $1 million liquid to pay attorneys, um, eh, that's already disqualifying from 95% of businesses in America instantly, right? You're
Yeah.
out. And so the whole premise is no one's going to spend that ridiculous cost if they can't win the case. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
the problem with that is that obviously we know that if, let's say, it's Apple versus, Aaron who invented a better cell phone, Apple can spend that $1 million 100 times over, right?
And why wouldn't
It,
they?
why wouldn't they? Because they're keeping you at bay. You have a better phone, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the systemic problem in intellectual property is the patents are intended to really allow the small guy, because I would argue that the big guys, if you're Apple and you invent a better phone, do you really need a patent to have a chance of that phone taking market
Right.
share? No, you don't.
I mean,
You're
the
Apple.
Glock Gen 4 or Gen 3, I can't remember which one it was. If you look at the side panel on, I guess depending on what year it was produced, it says patent pending on, I think, the grip texture. Why? The grip texture wasn't good. Like, what are you
I've
talking about?
yeah, I've been indirectly danced with Glock in the past, not as XTech, but another hat I've worn, and
Mhm.
that's a whole interesting topic too. I mean, when you get to aesthetics, I mean, that's a whole there's so you can't patent the look of something with a utility patent. That's not patentable at all. Uh, the images in a utility patent are designed to clearly translate the technology to the layman. Is actually what the core of how patent law is written. So you, as Aaron, who says you have no experience with patents, should be able to look at the drawings and say one of my patents. And if you can't tell what it is, then my patent actually isn't well written at all. If you
Yeah.
can't tell what I'm patenting, what I'm doing. So that's the function of the images in utility patent. There's other patent types, such as design patents, that we could talk about for a long time, but that's the look of something. And then there's trademarks, which is you can, trademark and register an image. So trademarks come into play more when it comes to looks as well as design patents. And then there's this obscure intellectual property known as trade dress. And so what I can say about my past stance was it was not around patents, it was not around trademarks, it was around trade dress. And trade dress is an unregistered form of intellectual property. So meaning there's no record that someone's even claiming they got it. The only way it can be proved or denied to exist is in court through litigation.
Hmm.
It's very, very, very seldom won. Like very, 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 very seldom won.
So,
So,
I mean, what kind of case do you have to build for that? Because there's a company that
hmm
I've worked with loosely, who they
hmm
have a product for holding magazines, and
hmm
they were, I guess, reaching out to their customers to collect, I guess, statements of some sort, saying like, "Hey, have you seen products that look like ours on like Amazon per se?" And
giant fishing.
right, right. It was kind of weird. I was like, "Hey, have you seen products that kind of look like ours on Amazon, which could be easily confused for ours? Did you almost buy it on accident because it was
Yep,
so close?
yep.
Is that part of the original like patent thing, or is that the trade dress? What is that?
th- that would be trade dress. That would be
Okay,
trade dress. And so, I mean, it may apply to some element of registered trademarks or design patents, but that would be specific to trade dress, which is this overarching. Um, Now, you can register trade dress. That would be through a trademark. But if you have unregistered trade dress, so like the function of trade dress is something that at its core, rule number one to be trade dress is it cannot be functional. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there can't be a functional element to it. It certainly can't be the primary reason. There's case law that debates if it can be secondarily functional. But at its core, the definition of trade dress, it cannot be functional. If it's functional, that's a utility patent, right? So you can't have both because otherwise there'd be a way to say it's trade dress and then the patent clock that would never start, so you can keep monopoly on something
Mm.
that should have been expiring after 20 years. And then the second thing is it has to be infamous to the plaintiff. So the party saying, hey, Aaron, you're infringing on my trade dress, you have to establish it as known to. If I'm suing you for trade dress, I have to prove that it's infamous to you. That when someone sees blank, they go, that's me. So like the Coca-Cola bottle would be one of the most prolific examples, right? When someone sees a Coca-Cola bottle, they go, that's Coca-Cola.
All
When
right.
someone sees the arches and the totality of the McDonald's, branding in store and out store, they go, that's McDonald's. If you saw at the time in the 90s the Taco Bell building design, you went, that's Taco Bell.
Yeah.
That's the function of trade dress. Another famous case is the yellow stitching on the brown and the sizing of the stitching at Cracker Barrel is actually a famous trade dress case that was actually won by
What?
Cracker Barrel.
Okay.
And
So
so,
that's insane. Go ahead. Go ahead.
so it's more trade dress is this like very like in most because of the like if you just look at a spreadsheet, right? So I always go, okay, there's morality to all this, right or wrong that you can bring into it, and there's also a business case, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like as much as I didn't like the unpleasantries I went through without getting into it, I can also look at it and go, would I hope that I would not make that kind of choice based on my perspective? Sure. Do I get how on a spreadsheet it made sense? Absolutely, I do. And so even in topics of mine, to me, it was about, a lot of time spent pursuing Congress and meeting with members of Congress and Senate. It was about pursuing a systemic change that, candidly, in the end, after a lot of time and money and effort and distraction, I kind of put my hands up that, hey, I can't. I want to change the world, but I can't. I'm just a dude.
All right.
So,
Now you're having. It sounds like you had to give up on your battle, which you didn't say, but it sounds like that's kind of what maybe didn't happen. At some
we
point,
settled in the end. Yeah,
okay,
so to your question, we settled in the end. Yep, and we can't talk about the outcome from it other than we're allowed to sell our product, and so is the opposing party.
okay. Well, that's great. Love to hear that you can sell your product. That said, at 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 some level, there's got to be, like you mentioned earlier, the little guy out there who's kind of getting
Mhm.
bullied on the in the patent field, and
Sure.
they're making a cool gun product. They're making a new stock, a new grip, and it's too similar to the other one. It's a violation of trade dress. It's a violation of our trademarked bump stock, XYZ. But you can't defend yourself forever because whether it be Sig or Glock Incorporated or name a titan in the gun space who we love them, but don't do that, buddy. But do they even have a choice? And they have to defend themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you have to you when someone files a suit against you, in most cases, if not all cases, on the civil front, you can't choose to say I'm not playing in the suit. Like you can't even choose to settle, right? You can make offers to the other side, but you're
Mm-hmm.
forced to defend yourself. And what's wild is in federal court on the intellectual property side, in most cases you are not even allowed to defend yourself. You have to hire outside counsel. And it's a wild system. It really is.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing there's a question about patent expiration. I'll need a little bit more clarity on the wording of that, just because I'm not quite sure how to ask that question. But while we're doing that, we talked like clearly you do this thing. You've been doing magazines and you've created some cool features. I want to say features, cool products that interface with firearms. You've never created a full firearm, have you?
I've worked on dozens of firearms.
Okay,
We've worked on actually developing complete weapon systems. We just can't talk about those things. We're a gun schreier. Yep, in that case,
fair enough.
figuratively and physically. But my my background was actually making plastic parts for dozens of different companies in this space. So that's
So
where
like white
XTech
label or
was. No, actually, like let's say one that I get along with very well, and like most of my customers, we have great relationships even to this day, where I'll still consult with them. But I worked with companies like Taurus and Ruger, and they needed plastic parts made, and I would help them do that. And it was a great relationship. So that's kind of where I came into, and eventually started XTech was from working for other companies making plastic parts as a supplier to them.
But how do you? So you just went to college, dropped out, and said, "I'm gonna make plastic parts." Like, tell me your story, man.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. No, I've been entrepreneurial since I was very young. I just had a route of landscaping and shoveling snow and all that kind of stuff, and hustled along that way and caddied and did different things and got into window washing and did that and got to the point where I was offered a large enough check that I thought I could retire. I look back and laugh at it, but and so that was kind of my first stint in managing people and running businesses and stuff was very my late teen years, as I kind of came up through it all and kind of fell into things by accident is the best way to look at it. And so I went back to college at the advice of my dad and grandfather, et cetera, and did that for 2.5 years, and suddenly I was raising my then what later was my first wife's daughter and raised her as my own and kind of became a dad overnight, and had bills to pay and all that. So I dropped out of college after getting an internship in commercial real estate and really enjoyed commercial real estate at first and taught me kind of I look at it as my master's degree in business. I got to work with dozens of small businesses, if not hundreds of small businesses, and learn what excites them, energizes them. And honestly, I left with kind of like, I was doing well, but it was like, man, they have so much fire and passion and they're building things and they're employing people and they're creating opportunities. And, I don't feel that way about what I'm doing. And so ended up for that and other reasons, taking a job with one of my clients in a small business that was injection molding. And the first client I got from him was firearms related, and kind of went downhill from there. Did right by someone, didn't hear no, and took on a challenge. I didn't know how it was deemed as impossible or improbable by others. I just didn't know better, and did well by him. And one referral led to another, and suddenly that's how I got in the gun industry. So that's kind of where that came up.
That's interesting. I know, if someone were to read your bio, you filed for, was it two patents before you even owned a gun?
Yep,
And you weren't even
absolutely.
pro gun to begin
Yeah,
with. Where were you in California or
I was
something?
neutral. No, I was absolutely neutral. I, I, I think, as I told, I'm about being authentic, right? I
Yeah.
haven't served anywhere. I've had the privilege of doing a lot of cool things and training with a lot of cool people. But really, to me, I grew up neutral. I grew up in a safe household. My grandfather, as I mentioned at the start, he was kind of my hero as a child, and he was a police chief who, grew up in small town Michigan and believed that civilians didn't have a reason to own things like, AR-15s and handguns and all that. So I just really stayed neutral on it. It wasn't that I was against it, I wasn't pro it. It just wasn't someone I was exposed to growing up. And it really took me getting exposed to the firearms, some great people in the industry, and realizing that the foundation of the belief was, hey, you have this little girl you love and you're raising as a daughter, and are you prepared to defend her, and what would you do to defend her, and are you well trained to do that? And that's where the foundation of my beliefs really stemmed from, as I was a young adult who was raising a child that I would give my life for in 2 seconds. And so firearms to me was just a means to ensure that, because I can't take on some 300-pound Viking, I'm I'm an average guy, right? And
All right.
so, but that's really where it came from. So I think that was a huge advantage to XTech early, to be honest with you, was my lack of knowledge around guns, because the other partners in XTech are engineers that loved guns, and they kind of saw me as the energizing sales guy and ideator and dude that could put things together, but and a potential face of a brand, and they, so that's kind of where that all came together, once I started having some gun ideas. But I think my lack of knowledge around guns actually helped the company to have a foundation to launch. So,
Yeah.
when you know so much, like now, when I go to ideate a firearms idea or identify a problem and explore solutions to that problem, I can't help with how active I am in the space, but have awareness of pretty much everything else someone else has done. And that influences what to look at. If you're looking at how to solve a problem, your brain instantly goes to how have other people solved it before? How have I solved it before? If you don't have that influence of how others have done it, your mind's actually more open to come up with other things. And I think that's where I look at like the grip and the easy loading AR mag and some of our early stuff was more because I didn't know what others had tried and failed and or not done.
I know this isn't the saying, but I'm going to say it. Don't take offense. In a sense,
Yeah,
you were like too dumb to fail, as in
absolutely.
you had no guide rails. It was just like, hey, let's go in there and try things, and if it works, even if it's not conventional, even if the typical gun guy or the old FUD or even the combat master would be like, no, we don't do it like that. One at a time for loading, one at a time.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
why? And the question is why? And they would probably. I'm imagining, just as somebody who's been new to a space myself, they tell you to do it this way, and you're just like, but we could do it that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but like Nate, let's talk about that, because obviously you have the easy loader, you have the grip. Like, what was a product that you were working on that was just like, they're telling me that I shouldn't do this, but it just makes more sense.
I mean, I think the one that people said the only one that I've shown to people that I trust and even at the time trust, like of course your circle of trust changes over time, right? I've been in this space for, 15 years now. XTech's been out since 2014, 2015. Um, and the only product that people are like, I don't know what you think you're gonna do with this. It makes sense, but it's a novelty thing, is our magazine extensions actually, of all the things. So the easy loading air mag, when people saw it, they're like, that's freaking cool. We got to market and we put it on the internet. Most people go, that's my girlfriend's magazine, right? And I'll be, that's something that I'd buy for. It'd be great for handicapped people. And we've seen different surges of reactions from that product. I tell influencers all the time. I probably told you this at GunCon. Like, hey, if you want comments on a video of all my products, show the easy loading air mag. You're gonna get, because no dude, and I get it. I got it when I came up with it. Is no dude wants to admit on the internet that loading a magazine is something that they don't enjoy doing, or it's even a problem to them, right? I get it.
You get
Like,
eviscerated.
it
You get
yeah,
destroyed. What, you use a speed loader? Well, you sissy.
yeah,
Grow some thumbs.
right,
Stuff like that. Like,
right.
get some
It's
callus on
like
your
mountain
hands.
bikers with, training wheels on their mountain bike. Who wants to be, who wants that, right? But if you
Oh
could
man.
just take a day off, a turn off, and not, you might want them. I don't know, right?
Well,
But
if you're doing
the
serious
mag.
product testing, shooting 1,000 rounds or 10,000 rounds,
Mhm.
you're gonna want to save those thumbs for later.
Well, and I think the thing that I'm adamant about is, and people could say, well, where does your easy loading mag fit into the rest of the things you guys have done? And I'll pull that out here. But it at the time, the definition we have today wasn't what we had then. We were just like, we were originally never going to be a company that the world would know about. When I started XTech, it was let's be a think tank and let's go sell our ideas to other people and collect mailbox money. We weren't
That's
trying to
interesting.
start a brand.
Yeah.
Um, and so then it didn't really have the definition, but this is the magazine that we're chatting on here. So you just pull this down, which is the follower all one piece, and you drop the rounds in. And so, but we market this product as the ultimate range magazine. Have fun at the range. Why not? We're not marketing this product as the world's best magazine or the, tactical battle ready magazine. The fact is it will pass every drop test I know of that Magpul's PMag Gen 3s will pass. But it has a slot in it. It's longer. Longer's not better in a tactical environment.
Mhm.
So I think honest marketing of products is something that I heard your podcast um, kind of touch on that when there's a gentleman on it. I forget what episode it was, but I was listening to
With
today.
Full Metal Sensei, Lou.
It sounds right. Yeah, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just like honest marketing is something that I'm um, so passionate about. Like it's to me, it's fatiguing, right? Like as a
Mhm.
consumer, and I think, there's this chapter of I started XTech, I have some ideas, we file some patents, we come up with some different ideas, and then, I'm an all-in guy. So if I'm doing something, I'm doing it. Like
Yeah.
I'm that kind of guy, right? And so I became a consumer that became, one of what I see my average customer as now, right? My average customers, in most cases, mostly male. We have a lot of female customers, but it's a human that has or in most cases wants children, right? Or at least they have family. They have people that in their life they're willing to give their life for. They have people
Yeah.
that they feel an obligation inside their core to defend, and they want to buy products that work. and they're tired and fatigued and disappointed when you get something and you have this perception it's going to do this thing. I mean, the analogy that's easy to pick on as an industry is red dots on pistols, right? When the red dot pistol craze started, everyone had this idea that I could just go write this check and I'm going to become instructor zero, right? I mean, you smile, I think
Yep.
you get it, right?
Yeah.
And
No, I
so it's
mean,
like I could just buy
what you
this
better change my
widget.
whole life, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and it was like this dot on a pistol, and then you get the dot, and then especially the first dots that came out, you put on the pistol, and you're like, is there a dot here? Where's the dot, right?
Is
There
this thing
wasn't in the
on?
marketing, right? There was nothing in the marketing as an industry about pistol red dots that you need to do X thousand draws to where that you're finding that dot naturally. That wasn't none of the manufacturers that I know of gave any messaging about the reality, and then the writers and the magazines and the influencers, like very seldom did I see anyone early phase, especially later on. Yes, I started seeing more of that. But I think that was more based on comments of like, hey, my thing's not working like yours. You're not showing me these 5,000 reps you're doing. I thought I could just buy, what training otherwise would provide me.
Yeah.
But as a whole, with products like you walk around the aftermarket magazine section in any gun shop in America that's well stocked, and what do you see on everyone's aftermarket magazine? I'm not going to name names, but you see world's best magazine, world's strongest magazine, world's blank magazine. And then you get them, and I would argue almost all aftermarket magazines do not work, are not ready for battle. There's no standard in the industry to what a magazine needs to be held to. And as a maker of magazines, to me, that's something I'm passionate about because your Glock can only run as well as its magazine, right? Your
Hmm.
kicker in a football game can only kick as well as its placeholder, right? Can hold the ball. And so to me, it's a serious thing, right? If you're making a product, and I'm again not going to name names, but I've known folks that blatantly tell me, don't buy this because we got a better gen coming out while they're marketing what's currently out there as ready. And that's that
I've,
that
I've,
that makes me mad.
I've actually encountered that where
Yeah.
I did some product reviews, reached back out to the manufacturer who sent the product and said like, hey, I'm seeing this, this, and this. This is my complaint. I mentioned this in said video, and they said, well, here's the good news. We're about to revamp our entire line next year to address those exact concerns. Okay.
And you're like, admit it. Just
Yep.
stop mismarketing your stuff.
Hmm.
Here's, if you don't mind, I'll take a left turn that I think will blow your mind. Where all these topics come together, and it's
Let's do
and
it.
the hero of the story is going to blow your mind.
Let's do it.
So Amazon, okay, I say Amazon. Most conservative, most gun guys. I don't want to make it about politics, but most folks' reaction to Amazon's like, screw those guys. They're like as bad as it gets, right? I mean, in
Generally, yeah.
general, that's a response to Amazon. Death of small business, Amazon knockoffs and supports the
It's the
Chinese and
knockoffs,
all
bro.
these things.
I don't
I
care
mean,
about anything
it's
else.
all
It's
the
the
things.
knockoffs.
Yeah. There's a ton of negative things about Amazon. But on the two topics of intellectual property for the small guy and on marketing, Amazon's actually at the global forefront of both in a good way. And it's not even close. So, couple quick hits for people is the average intellectual property dispute I touch on this is over $1 million a side in the
Hmm.
US, right? In Western Europe, $60,000 a side. Yep. So if I get a dispute in France, 60 grand, I can plead my case. I can sell a truck and come up with that. How many people can come up, listen to this podcast and come up with $60,000? It's still a lot of money, but
I mean, it's
friends and family shake some
possible.
trees.
It's
It's a
possible.
lot more accessible than a
Right.
million dollars,
You know the
right?
right guy, you can get
Yeah,
60 grand. There's not a lot of guys you can know
right.
that can spot you a million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do Uber Eats for a little bit and fund that, month by month, right? In
Right.
theory.
Over time.
But you may have to sell that Ford Raptor and switch it out for a Pinto, but you've got options. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
Amazon has come up with its own dispute system for trademarks for registered intellectual properties that applies to trademarks, design patents, and patents. So
For products
basically,
sold in their market.
you're kind of yes, anything on their marketplace. It only pertains to their marketplace. So it doesn't go outside their marketplace, but their scope is their marketplace. So now, if Aaron invents something, if you asked me this 2 years ago and you call me up and we were buddies, like, and as you can imagine, a lot of the influencers that know me call me with, I got this idea. What do you think? It might relate to guns, it might not, kind of become that guy. And before a story I would tell you is related to pretty much anything, unless you got access to $1 million, be ready to have someone step on you and crush you.
Mm.
Now, if your product can be sold on Amazon, which a lot of gun parts can, another negative for Amazon, um, but some can. If your product can be sold on Amazon, you've got protection within Amazon if you have an issued patent or trademark, and it will only your max exposure if you win, which is all a quick process. It's like 2,500 bucks. In most cases, it's $1,000 to go through the whole system. Now, the other kicker with Amazon, so the way they do it is essentially they assign their own patent attorney to be the judge Judy, right? So the whole system is extremely efficient. So like in most intellectual property disputes, the facts aren't even evaluated until post-discovery. You're going to spend $500,000 plus to get to that point before the facts are even evaluated by any sort of ruling body, judge or jury, which is wild. And you're talking years to get to that point. That's how the legal process works in the US. And Amazon, you're talking weeks. Like you're literally talking, here's my side, here's their side. I think it has to fit into like 6 or 10 pages. And then they just assign an attorney. Now, their attorneys, you can picture who the Amazon attorneys are. They're going to be people who can't get work. They're going to be like magistrate judges that, can't get their own clients, or they're going to be, people that are from overseas that pass the American bar, and so you're not talking the highest level of attorneys, but if your patent is meritorious and obvious, like, and it's, I don't want to misuse the term obvious because there's dual meaning here, but if your patent is easily understandable and the infringement is clear, you're going to win. And then if you win the dispute, you get your money back in most cases.
Which isn't guaranteed in the standard judicial system. That has to be basically
Oh,
fought for.
ooh,
And even then, there could be some time before you even recoup the funds because the other party has to pay you. That's so interesting.
that's correct. You're under 2% of patents of intellectual property disputes in the U.S. that attorney's fees are assigned or awarded to the prevailing party. Under 2%.
Wow.
Yep. So the idea
Ooh,
of
the
even getting your
attorneys are
money
getting
back,
rich.
oh, they're getting rich, man, and the system's just it's very inefficient. But Amazon has the most efficient system, and I think to me that's like a breath of fresh air from my circle and sphere as a guy who has a passionate dream to like, after this, at some point you come up with an idea. I'm going to volunteer an hour of my time. We met, I liked you, we connected. Like, if you ever have an idea, I'm here to help you. No charge to you, no strings attached, and just give you what I can share.
That's awesome.
But now
Thank
you
you.
have a path that can be sold as Amazon where you don't have to have that story of don't have $1 million, don't bother. I mean, and that's not the hard reality, but that's a potential reality that you can't control. You can't
Yeah,
choose if
it's
some big guy
very
comes
likely
after
that
you.
it could happen that you
Yeah,
file a patent and then you get it. Here's here's the part that's kind of scary for a lot of guys who are in the invention space, inventors, creators of products, whatever you want to call yourself, right? You make a product here, and then it shows up on Wish, it shows up on Timu, it shows up on Alibaba, and now
hmm
not that they've penetrated the American markets so much so that you're going to see your product everywhere, and it's going to be phone eye with, and it looks just like an iPhone, but it's running Android, which which version of Android 10, right? Um,
right.
but is that a concern for a guy like you, where it's like, hey, I'm making the product, man, this product is going to show up everywhere, and I can't do a thing about it because it's you know com- the judicial systems are completely different. I have no.
No, I mean, you can file patents internationally, and then it's of course another rabbit hole. I mean, one of the hard lessons learned when you get into the big leagues of disputes, is the guys you're fighting against, if they're a big guy, they've already got Kobe and Shaq on speed dial in the form of attorneys. They've got the top dogs established. They've been around. They know who those people are. When you're the little dude, you're like calling your friends and family and like being like, well, I don't need a DUI attorney. I need a, I need so you're weeding out, right? And so we even went through, we started with one firm that was very highly referred to us, and they said they're going to do one thing and did something different. And so like you're spending a gazillion dollars as you're developing what your team looks like. And I'm grateful to have the team I have now, and now we're prepared, in moving forward in life. Um, but yeah, it's I don't concern myself over that. I really don't. And there's a number of reasons why. One is where I need to police and where it matters the most is, I mean, 80% of my potential sales are US consumers,
All right.
right? I mean, as a accessory manufacturer, sure I could get every military contract in the world in theory, but am I going to do that? No. I mean, they can do those things, and and the other element of it is we're, our stuff, it has a reputation to it. Our brand has meaning to it. And there's an interesting story on that topic as a whole of getting knocked off. There was a gentleman that I never worked with directly, but I was acutely aware of his story, and he owned a company called the Yo-Yo Factory. And he was making yo-yos. So, I assume we're about the same age. I haven't asked how old you are yet, but I'm guessing you're uh, lived long enough to see a cycle of yo-yos being popular, right?
Yeah, I
There's
was
a
playing with
trend.
yo-yos in school.
Yep. And so yo-yos have come and gone, and there's actually, the yo-yo industry says it's every 13 years yo-yos regain popularity. It's kind of weird, but
That's so weird.
like everything's got data, right? And so now if you think back right now, you're going to be like, yeah, that's about right, right? Like
Yeah, it's
they went through
true.
trends and they come back, all right. And
Yeah, I
so,
mean, shoot, bell
but
bottoms
anyway,
are coming back. Get out of town.
yeah, exactly, right? So it's a trendy product. It becomes popular and then it goes away, right? It becomes popular and it goes away. But this particular company was known as like a premium, like a bunch of sponsored yo-yo professionals and stuff. It wasn't like your Dunkin' or Omega or the stuff that, you'd see more everywhere. So it's something that like tricksters would, trick yo-yo guys would do, professionals would
Mhm.
do. And he was making stuff in China. And it got so bad that the people on the lines in China know they can look at a yo-yo and go, that's a yo-yo, right? And so they would be giving it to their buddy down the street at another shop. They go build molds, and it was hitting the streets in China before he was getting his own parts for the next gen stuff.
That's incredible.
And so he went on this giant tirade of spending all the success he had chasing legally down these infringers. And meanwhile, his sales are doing this all along. Like he's just
Yeah.
crushing it. So he has all this money to fund this chase around. Finally, he's playing whack-a-mole, plugging holes, finding all these infringers all over China, moving his manufacturing to the US, spending all this money that he's making as his sales are still crushing it. Finally, he catches up with the majority of the infringers to the point where his product's no longer in the street, even in China. And he suddenly realizes the last 6 months as he's shutting down infringers, his sales do this. Because all those infringers were bringing people who were buying the knockoffs or seeing the knockoffs, they were getting exposure that the real thing existed.
Wow. What a lesson.
So there's
Like
there's two
there's a
sides.
moral to
There's
that
two
story,
sides to
man.
that. Yeah, I mean, I think that the moral to the story is most things in life outside of gravity and that we're going to die at some point are not universal truths.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm an eternal optimist. I embraced my first mentor in business, and I got into the startup world. And this space is, they said there's one attribute that I saw in people that are continually successful in life, and that's eternal optimism. So, if you can't tell with me, even in the hardest truths, you can seek to find positives. And I think
Mm.
so. I choose to have that perspective on it. Of do I want knockoffs? Absolutely not. It's flattery and it brings exposure to the real thing. And we have other things outside of our patents or what's externally looks like our product that make our products what they are.
Yeah, it's really interesting because even in the content creation space, and I've been accused of this at some level, or at some point, is you have a show or a model or a content style or a template per se, and somebody else
Yep.
comes in and does it, and maybe they don't do it better, but they have their own flair and charisma. You can't get mad at that. Like you can be a little upset, but ultimately if you're losing sleep over it, or if that person wants to collaborate with you, and obviously you can choose who you want to collaborate with and do business with ultimately. But actually, one of my buddies, he's right here in the live chat. I believe he's still here. He was telling me, "Hey, I want to start this type of program. I'm not going to say what it is because we want to also do something similar." And I was like, "Bro, I was literally talking to my brother and my cousin about doing a similar show about this specific topic. It's going to be so cool. But you should definitely do it too, and let's actually collaborate together at some point and be on each other's stuff because there's enough room for everybody to eat and to win and to do well. And I can't come up with the stuff that this guy comes up with. Like I just can't. And I don't expect that he'll apply everything that I would do to a show to my stuff. So it was like we can both. There's 350 million people in America. We'll
Yeah.
be just fine.
Yeah.
We'll be
No, I
fine.
love that. I love that. Well, I think it's so cool where you can kind of like vet it and learn from each other and like collaborate. Like, and I get it too. Like, there's plenty of stuff in like the product space where you're like, it'd be nice at least if since I know I told Aaron about this concept, I didn't patent, I'm not patentable, or whatever. It'd
Right.
be nice at least if Aaron acknowledged me, if he's gonna
That
knock me out.
that
There's a little bit of
is
that human element.
that I understand that, and we talked to one of the well-known creators in the space and activist Maj Touré, right? And he was
Mhm.
at some point offended because Coleon Noir, one of the greatest content creators in in the gun space to ever do it, just giving him his propers. He had a show format back when he was still with NRA TV that Maj felt like so closely copied his. He was offended for a long time. In fact, actually treated Coleon badly about it. Little did he know, Coleon really didn't have a lot of say in that format. So one of the probably the production assistants told the producer to do it, and then now Coleon's doing it, and having no idea. But I think ultimately Maj wanted some sort of acknowledgement, like, hey, like don't take my idea and don't even like give me credit for it, Which I get that.
Are you saying that men struggle to have mature conversations with each other?
What?
I would I tease that all the time where, like the culture, like, and I always tease this in business because you get all this, we all know the gun industry can be very dramatic at times. But it's like, what happened to the old school of like, hey man, you said this and it didn't sit right with me. Can we talk through it? Like, what
Bro, I
happened?
had
We
that
all want to
conversation the
be
other
that
day.
guy
I had that
and just,
conversation the other day.
just
A
talk it
buddy of
out.
mine was working on my car, and they actually did something really nice for me in one regard, and then something got screwed up. It really wasn't their fault, but I was like, hey, can you guys help me out with this? And the way I said it rubbed my buddy the wrong way, and I guess he sat on it for a day or two, came back to me later when I called him back, or he called me and was like, bro, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it because you're my guy. I know you didn't mean it anyway, but um, what you said, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It offended me. Not even gonna sugarcoat it. And I was like, bro, I had no idea. Like I felt a
Yeah.
little weird after I said it, but I didn't think you took it the wrong way, and I should have caught myself and apologized. I'm so sorry, bro. And here I'm kicking myself because that's not my heart or intention to offend. Like that's not me. But it did, and I'm so glad that he said something because so many people would have just held it down and be like, "This guy, how dare he? I was doing something nice for him, and he did this and this." It's like, why are we like this?
I love that, man. I love that story because like that shows me, a, dude invested in you, like was willing to put himself out there and show
Mm-hmm.
humility, like, hey, like someone may see this as petty, but like it's affecting me and I took it the wrong way. And also that's a sign that he, wanted a continued relationship with you. And so to me, that's like, I think at a core, like let's just go back to, you know, I don't want to get into some tirade, but like just good communication at the core. People, you're
Yeah,
gonna, stuff. I've got, companies in the space that a lot of people are like, wait, you work with them? They're a competitor of yours. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I work with them. I help them. I help them. There's times I can't tell them everything I'm up to, and there's times they can't tell me, but like,
right,
let's all, and then there's sometimes we're like, hey man, it kind of upset me that you didn't tell me you were going this direction with your products. And it's like, you should have given me the heads up. And I'm like, and sometimes they have merits to that, maybe. I could see their
mm-hmm.
side. Other times I'm like, hey man, we're not like that. Like, I'm not just giving you the keys to the kingdom. But
Right.
I strive to just have those relationships where you can help each other and talk through things when it doesn't land as intended, like you just pointed out, which I love that.
Yeah, I mean it. I think it takes a certain level of self awareness, and also a certain level of like, I don't want to be that guy, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I
at a
love that,
certain
man.
level,
It really is. My wife's a therapist. I love my wife to death, and she's
yeah,
incredible. And we focus on communication so much, and just trying to be leaders in our community. And I think so
yeah,
many of the problems are just like we all tell ourselves stories all the time, right? And you're forced to
yeah.
because your brain's constantly going, filling in the blanks. So I think it's just talking, old school talking. I mean, I think that's just so authentic and real.
Dude, I'm with that 100%. I think I met your wife at the event. Was that your wife?
That was my wife. That was her
Yeah.
first consumer-facing event ever in firearms. So that was
Yo, she
she
did
got
really
thrown
well.
into the
Although
deck.
I was like, I don't know if she's the primary, a vehicle for moving information, because every once in a while, and this is no slight against her, because I thought she was rocking out, right? But like I would ask a really tough question and she'd be like, "That's a great question. Hey, what do you think about that?" And like she would like really just get you involved. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, 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 yeah. I like it." And clearly, you invented the product. So like, if there's someone who's gonna know a thing, like, hey, what are the composite materials that you use to create this polymer or whatever it is, right? Like, you're gonna know. So fair.
No, it's fun because like my our life is, a lot of travel and doing stuff and supporting each other's in their businesses. So like, we've had days where like Friday night I'm supporting her speaking at some event as an expert on what she
Oh, that's
does.
awesome.
And then Saturday's like a gun event where she's my I jokingly call her my booth babe, right? And it's like we do this one baton. It's just like this it's really fun to be with someone that's like-minded and both of us we want to make our impacts in our own way. They're
Yeah.
very different impacts. I'd argue in some ways, some could argue present tense hers matter more, but I think what we're doing too with making products that last and honestly trying to change the industry standard. I mean,
And
the
that's
other
why I
thing
wanted to
I,
have this conversation, is because I believe that your heart and your mission and the way you go about doing business establishes a precedent. Like we talk about like legal precedent, right? I think it
Mhm.
establishes a precedent of how companies have done it and could do it. And it kind of leaves a lot less room for the BS nonsense of like, hey, well, I mean, look how XTech does it, like, or XTech. Um, they're not being this way, or when they interact with their competitors, like they're friendly. They don't, you know, we're not setting car bombs to them. Like we're not threatening people's lives, and that can happen even in this space. It's I've actually known a guy who's like, yeah, there was actually dispute. It was getting kind of ugly. We were concerned it would kind of turn violent. I'm like, what? What are you talking about, bro?
Yeah, I mean it's nuts that so the other side of Amazon is not to divert back, but I just want to lay out there is like the Amazon has now restricted the use of any grandiose marketing terminology.
Really?
Translation, if you can't prove a claim, you can't make it on Amazon. So terminology like world's best magazine, if you can't prove it's the world's best magazine, and that would be arguably too grandiose where you could never use it, if you could sell a magazine on Amazon, which to be clear, you can't. But if you could say world's strongest magazine of a 6 foot drop test, fully loaded on a downward angle at 6 feet on the concrete. If you could prove that that's true, you could say that on Amazon. You cannot say claims you can't support on Amazon. Now, someone can go on Amazon. I'm sure they can. Someone's gotten something past the AI and the Malaysian little guys that police it. But the rules of Amazon now is if you cannot support a claim, you cannot make the claim. Which in the US commercial market, you absolutely can use grandiose marketing claims where you actually have no exposure for saying something like world's best AR grip. You have no exposure for that. If you say world's strongest running
Like
over by
legal
a truck
exposure
grip,
to
and it's not
lawsuit
true.
and penalties.
Yep. But that grandiose claim, you have no exposure.
It's interesting because if you ever woken up at 2 a.m. with the TV on, you've heard a lot of grandiose claims.
No, and
These
it's like it goes
infomercials are
back to like that
wild.
consumer. Yeah, I mean my target audience to me, like my core consumers are some of them happen to be people that use our products for a living, right? And
Yeah.
in duty. But our core audience is just like us, the owners of XTech, right? We're husbands, we're fathers, we have people that we feel a
Hmm.
duty to defend. And as that too, part of providing isn't just with having guns and ammo on. Like we have a finite amount of resources we can spend on that. So if we can save some money here, great. If we can get a magazine that's more cost effective than an alternative that's long-term proven, if I can get a Glock magazine that costs less than a Glock magazine that works just as well, I'm all about that. But then we've also been those consumers that have tried all these things and watched marketing and read articles that says they're perfect, and we get them and go, "This was freaking perfect!" Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
I mean,
it,
what are those
and
clear Glock mags that do not work? You know? Yeah.
I'll stay away from saying names, but yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's and those, there's a Clear Lock magazine out there that's marketed as the world's best magazine. You're like,
Why?
and 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 so it's just, I got in this industry, and I remember sitting in an event from a top five manufacturer, and they invited me to something. They had me part of something that gave me exposure to what was the norm about what got into like the guns and ammos of the world and all the written publications, right? And going back to, I know some original OG influencers in the space pretty well. Like John responded to a PowerPoint from me. So John has a special place in my heart. He was actually John Patton was the
Yeah.
first person I ever talked to in the gun industry, like in the influencer side, media side. So
Nice.
he responded to Jeremy, the guy with an idea about a grip.
Yeah.
That's that's how far we go back. Um, and I think that was 2013 or 14. But I would sit in these events where they would show the next wave of products coming out, and I would sit there just with my jaw on the floor going, "What the heck?" And the product managers would come out and they would write on the board, here's the next gun, here's what we want you to talk about, here's what we know is the problems or what people aren't going to like. Here's how we want you to respond to the problems that we like use this language to address why we left this out or why we did this way or why we didn't do this way. And then we would just, as consumers, get all these different magazines and just see the same regurgitated information and be like, oh, this is another groundbreaking revolutionary. Then you get it in your hands and you're like, why does this gun exist? Why does it have a reason to exist?
I mean,
And
if you talk
then
about
we
Glock
saw
Gen
these
4 to Glock Gen 5 in innovation, and you're like, so you removed the finger grooves, and that is innovative. Oh,
And, well, and then yeah, and then you have this weird thing that just sits really awkwardly on your pinky in the original Gen 5s, right? That half moon cutout.
yeah.
Um, but then so you get the birth of YouTube and the rise of YouTube back to the OGs of the military arms channels and 22 Flinkster. I know Dave pretty well. And guys like John, and he had Whitey three guns or whatever his other buddy went by that was pretty cool. But these guys all started as like they all had main jobs. Like
Yeah.
I think
This guy.
22 Flinkster was like, yeah, he was installing like security systems, right? And Hickok was like a high school basketball coach. You know, these are
Makes
just
sense.
dudes
Like,
that
that
like
just makes too
it.
much sense.
I mean, all those that Tennessee crew, man, they're all giants. Have you seen those guys in person? They're
I've met
freaking.
Hickok at least one time, and he is a massive human being.
I mean, your neck hurts after, right? You're just
Yeah.
like trying to talk to those, and all those, they're all basketball guys, and but these were dudes who just like enjoyed guns. A lot of them started by accident. None of them wanted to be influencers, and they don't admit that anyway. Or like, I'm not doubting them, but they didn't set out to like replace their incomes.
Hmm.
And then, before YouTube demonetized, they could do whatever they want with full, ability to just be transparent, give their own personal views. And because of that, everyone was like, oh my gosh, we haven't had this in so long as gun guys. This is great. We get to hear this guy, Aaron, that, you know, is coaching kids by day and on his free time, he's buying guns just like me. He's like me. He's relatable. I connect with him. I believe him. He has integrity. And, then shockingly, the industry, what most of the industry doesn't know is there was a push at one time amongst the big players in the space that were buying ads and getting their placements. One of the ideas was to sue them. There was actually topics that got some legs amongst the who's who of manufacturing companies to start suing YouTubers when it was surging at first.
Really.
And I can't say for who, but I was in a meeting and I was, it was like kind of like that. Anyone object to this after someone telling them, like announcing the plan of let's sue these guys because we can't control them and they're saying things we don't like. And I was just like kind of the guy, like, should I say something? Should I not? And I'm like, I object. And they're like, well, what do you got to say? And I shared my thoughts of, hey, like, you're not going to win this war. Like, you're going to be destroyed. And like, legally, can you even collect against this guy or that guy? Like, do you even know who these people are? And at this time, I had a budding relationship with some of them. And I'm like, you're never going to win this. I mean, this is your customer you're attacking if you're attacking these guys on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, let's form a bridge. And if you talk to some of the guys I named, like I actually made some initial introductions with some of them to the manufacturers and formed that bridge. And that was kind of my contribution. And a lot of people see some of the stuff over the years that's been covered for XTech, and they're like, oh, you clearly you wrote some big checks just like some of the other guys. And the honest truth is, I haven't. I've written some checks for small things, but I haven't. Most of that equity you see that people, Baker channels have covered us, if anything, they felt like I was, a part of bridging that gap of, hey, let's look at relationships, not at attacking. And but anyway, I wasn't looking to go down the road too much about my involvement there, but just more awareness of how that
Yeah.
all shifted. But I love the topic that came up on that same podcast I was listening to about what I read between the lines was, the gentleman you had on said, "I'll never do affiliate sales. I'll never collect a commission." And
Hmm.
what I read through was that you are willing to, and I think that's a debatable topic, but I think at the same time, his point was right, and I disagree with him.
Mm.
Um, and so his point was, collecting affiliate sales, you're basically putting yourself in a position to sell your soul. I 100% agree with him there. But people, I mean, to me, people want to make a living, maintaining your integrity. It's just, is it harder if you're making, there's certain guys that make, $500,000 from large companies like PSA or Brownells in a
Yeah.
year. I mean, we all know that exists, right?
Yeah, I
if
know those
if you're
guys.
getting that kind of, yeah, we know those guys, and it is what it is. But when you're doing a review and you get something that shouldn't go and you see a problem with something, is it as easy for you to go, I'm gonna call these guys out if you're getting $500,000 a year as if you're getting nothing? It's much harder.
Much
But does
harder.
that mean that you shouldn't support in a collaborative partnership, recommend products you believe in? I think there's a way to do it, and I don't think the audience, and jump in the chat, folks, if you disagree, but I don't think anyone in the audience has a problem with the idea of, if it's disclosed and if it's clear, someone who's making their living providing you, uh, quality recommendations for products, and that has integrity and maintains it, them getting something off your purchases. You know, should the audience hold them accountable? Should we as manufacturers and the influencers, mutually hold ourselves accountable? Yes,
Mhm.
but I think everyone's got to make a living and everyone respects that.
Yeah, I think in the conversation of compensation for work, advertisements, showcases, overviews, reviews, paid reviews, because I know people who have no issue doing a paid review. Like, I will give you my full opinion. You have paid me for my production fee, and you have paid me to prioritize your product. And I've gone back and forth. I don't know where I am at this point with even that, which seems almost sinister and antithetical to the innocence of YouTube. And using YouTube and innocence in the same sentence is kind of an oxymoron, I know. But the just the purity of when you said, like, hey, if you decide to sue the YouTubers, you're an idiot because you are suing your customers. Because in the purest form, the YouTuber is a pure representation of the customer. Now, it's been a little bit
Mhm,
flipped in more recent years, where
mhm.
the YouTuber is a proxy for the company or the managing company or the marketing firm that
It
interacts with
can
the
be.
company.
It can be. It,
And it
it, it
can be.
can
Not
become
not
that.
everyone is that way, and
Yes.
I think you can easily sniff the guys who are. But I've
Hmm.
I've had, let's say, Tyrant CNC, for just name a company who makes products, right? I've reviewed their products on the Armed Atlas YouTube channel. I've liked some of the stuff. Some of the stuff I didn't like. And the stuff I didn't like, I let them know. Not a big fan. I let you know in the video, not a big fan. Now, does that put me in a weird spot with them? It's like, subconsciously, if they have to cut one of the influencers out of their program, is it going to be me? Maybe. Do I care? Not really. Like, there's a lot of companies that would like to work with me just because of a couple different things on the list. I'm not saying I'm all that in a bag of chips, but the point being is, for me making a review, I have to just tell you the truth. Now, if it comes down to it, if the product's completely defective, does the video get scrapped? And I just say, like, hey, Craig, your product is just not working. It's not going to be worth my time to make a video. The video might go viral for all the wrong reasons. I want you guys to improve the product and let me know when it's done. Would that happen? Is that a symbiotic relationship? Is that unethical? Should I just post it on YouTube? This thing sucks. Most manufacturers hate that. They want you to be fair. Now, is that fair to the viewer? Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's the same. I mean, we all, and I say we, it's like everyone listening to this. I think it's
The royal
universal
we.
truths are not arbiter
Yeah.
truths, but at the same time, I think most of, yourself, myself, we're all in the same boat. People listening to this, like, we do something for a living, unless you won the lottery or inherit it. And if you did, good for you. But also, I pity you because you'll never get to, get there
Yeah.
on your own. So,
Yeah.
I know people on both sides, but we all have core values, right? I mean, there's tons of things you could do tomorrow,
Hmm.
right? You're people know who you are. You have a good product. There's things you could do to increase your income and do things that are short-sighted, right?
Yeah.
There's things that everyone listening could probably do that would increase their income and do things that are short-sighted or increase their prevalence or whatever their objective is.
Sure.
There's things I could do as a manufacturer. but stick to your core values, right? And I think the one guy I'll call out by name all day long is John Patton, right? I mean, there's a reason I truly love John. Like, and I'll use that terminology. My wife's a therapist. She loves emotional intelligence, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're gonna love John of all the people you meet, because John is like, he's a dude who acknowledges his thoughts and feelings. He puts his heart into everything. Like the funny joke at GunCon, we went to a coffee shop. My wife likes coffee. I bought John a cookie. I tried to hand him a cookie, and I should have known because I've been at stuff with John before. We've done things together. And you like go to him a cookie. He's like, I can't eat. Like he's all in. Like he is committed to giving that product. His heart and soul is
Yeah.
to give you and me a great event, and he's all into it. And candidly, if I owned a gun company making guns right now, John does reviews on the Gun Collective, and I would be nervous as heck waiting for John's review. Like
He might
they
not get
are
a gun.
honest.
If I got a gun
They,
review, I might not send him the gun.
I would not go first, right? I would not go first with John.
Right.
And so I respect dudes that are doing that. Like, Chris Toomer and I have become buddies at Ross Martin, and it's like, we
Oh yeah,
met at SHOT
Chris.
Show,
Yeah, yeah,
and we kind of hit it off, and like we're kindred spirits, similar ages in life. There's not many of us that are,
yeah,
kind of established. He got there, he jumped in the scene fast, but most people don't know his full backstory, but I'll let him tell that.
yeah.
Um, but I was saying is, Chris submitted his gun, and he's like, John gave him a good score, but John does things authentically. Like if I worked out a deal with you after this podcast or whatever, and it's like, hey, I want you to review every single one of my products, and if your response to every single product is, this is the best blank in the world, this is the best blank in the world, this is the best blank in the world, everything about, that's not it. No one watching that's going to be like, I'm buying into this. As a consumer, I'm going, this is inauthentic, this isn't real. As someone doing innovative things, there's certain things you're going to connect with and say, yep, that's a problem I connect with, that it really matters. And
Yeah.
there's other things you're going to be like, I see what they were doing here, and I don't really see that they're solving it. And I
Right.
respect that.
Right.
That's
And but
authentic and
that's
real.
my greatest desire. Like when I came up to your
Yeah.
um um table at GunCon, and the same way as when I came up to the table of the guys tag me at Occupy, they have like a device, and we'll get into that later on. Not in this show, but another show maybe. I might ask you point blank. I'm like, hey, listen, there's a lot of cool products in the world. Like, what makes yours special? Like, why does the
Yeah.
audience deserve? Like, let's not waste their time. Don't waste my time, but don't waste their time. Why should you be on camera
Mhm.
talking to these people in their bathroom break? They got a lot of cool stuff to watch. And why should they
Yeah.
spend $15 with you? $30, $50, $100? Thousands in some cases. Why is it different, or is it just the same 1911 rescanned and now it's double stack?
Yeah. I mean, and again, people are going to connect with different things. They're going to get like, if you look at a table of stuff, you're going to be like, man, that's freaking amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just think authenticity is what people want. And, for me at our core, it is, and it will be, our competition to us is us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Gen 2 of our AK mags, exactly zero people amongst the AK community, the influencers, the ordnance guys that were our testers, exactly zero suggested any improvements to what was released as our Gen 1. We came out with Gen 2 because we knew we could do things better. We're working on Gen 3. I have no delivery date for it. I don't even know if I'm going to do it, but we're working on something because it would change the world if hypothetically it worked. And I'm spending money towards that because it would potentially make it better. And that's a core of like our brand is what we're trying to do is do things that matter. And if it doesn't matter, I'm not looking to sell another, Gen 3 PMAG, right? I mean, to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I need to have a reason to exist. Right now, they work well enough and for applications, and their price point where they can be disposable. And when they go down, and they work, right? But you've got to be solving a problem. And when I say solve a problem, like yes, at the end of the day, I make the decision if it's a problem that we're solving, it's a worthy problem. But I take input. John, a lot of those guys, like John's also like in that circle for me where I'll call him and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Or, what do you think of that? And what I love about John is I'm going to get a direct answer. Like my feelings matter zero. And he's one of those
Yeah.
guys with true friends that like the friend that tells you you have stuff in your teeth, right? Or
Yeah.
the friend that tells you you look like crap, or, did you drink too much last night? You're not ready to walk in the office or whatever. John sees his duty as your friend to give you, to shoot you
Right.
straight. And those are the
Right.
people that I like to surround
I
myself with.
I consider people who don't do that not my real friend. Like, bro, are we even
Not your real
friends?
friends.
Like, I had something on my
No.
shirt the whole time and nobody told me. I had something in my beard.
Yeah.
Recently, I grew my beard out a little bit more, and I've been getting stuff caught on it. I literally dip it in plates like a savage.
No, it,
Y'all didn't tell me.
it's no, it's cool, man. John's a select very short list for me. He really is, and
Yeah.
we've got some battles, scars together. But GunCon was so cool. Let's give a shout out to him. Is that at that event? Honestly, as I was flying out there, my wife's like, "We have a ton of chaos going on. We're gonna sleep in our bed between now and the end of October, like a total of 4 nights. Like we're
Cool.
traveling nonstop. We're going around the country. Got a bunch of exciting news in the near future for XTech, some big box stores, and some really exciting partnerships. So really good things happening, but that equates to me being on the road nonstop. And she's like, "Are you sure we should have went to this GunCon thing?" And I'm like, "I'm here to support a friend, and that's how I'm looking at it. If I could
Hmm.
repick now, I wouldn't have gone to this."
Yeah.
And I even told John this after. After I left, I'm like, I can't miss this again ever.
Hmm.
It was my first, like that's how I felt, and I gave
Right.
John that feedback, and I'm sure he appreciated it because it was
Yeah.
honest and real, right? And
Yeah.
but he did a great event. If anyone's watching this and you're looking to start a channel, that's what I think was so freaking cool to me. I go to these other like who's who things, and it's like, oh, this person can only get in if they have this many subscribers. They can only get in if they're vetted by this many companies. I loved meeting these folks that are like, I want to start a YouTube channel, so I spent the money to come to Iowa to get into the space and network. Like there was now they didn't get the I'm a affiliate or what's not the affiliate's not the right word, an influencer badge. They got an
Right.
attendee badge, so they paid for a ticket, and John let them in, and John let them go around saying, "Hey, can I work with you? I'd love to connect with you. Can I, if I buy your products, can I give you feedback?" And like I love that inclusiveness
Yeah, I
of,
met some of those
it's an
guys,
opportunity.
and it made
Yeah,
me so happy to see
it's
like
awesome.
young, hungry, creative types who they want to do this. They want to do this for real, and they're in the space. And I'm not here to just John, 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 but John really did something special this year, last year. I'm sure the year before. I was just This is my second year going, and I recommend anybody who can go. It's in the middle of nowhere, so accommodations are going to be a little weird, but you
Yeah,
should
that was
definitely
tough.
go. Don't go to Comfort Inn. Like get something else.
Things
But
things to do. We looked up because she didn't want to take the early flight Sunday, so we looked up like things to do in Des Moines. So we had like it was like a
yeah,
whatever it was 7 a.m. flight or like a 7 p.m. flight, and like number one that pull up on Google. And again, this is like end of June. It's 90 degrees outside.
oh yeah.
Number one thing that pulled up when you Google things to do in Des Moines, it was sledding.
Why?
Yep,
Why are we
sledding.
like this?
I mean the AI's got to be off.
Something's not right.
I'm not.
Uh,
I've had people out there in the I'm sure that Google didn't tell me some good things to do in Des Moines, but we're just like, I think we're gonna go work for 6 hours. That's what we did. But
yeah. So here's the thing. We're probably just a little bit over time on just a normal show. And so what we could do is we can show off some of the cool stuff that you got in the box if you have a few minutes. Here, I don't know if it's connected to an actual firearm. If it is, we'll have to take the show offline over to the locals. If it's not attached to a firearm, we can show it, we can demo it, and we can talk about it. If you have a few minutes to do that, let me know.
yeah, yeah, I can run through stuff. Yeah. So we showed the grip, and then yeah, for us, so this is a product actually we haven't announced anywhere, but it's on our website. So what's unique about this is we've had our plus five extensions out for the M&P for some time, but this is the first time that we're bringing in and working with some Italian manufacturers to offer complete magazines. So now instead of just being able to get the plus five extension from us, you're able to get the complete magazine. So with our extensions, one thing that really sets us apart are our two utility patents. This particular product is going to feature one of them. And one of the known issues with extensions, and I referenced earlier, people are like, well, why are you doing this? Extensions are kind of this novelty thing. They're just machine parts. But we have a patent on how these two parts go together, which allows us to have a leading edge that goes up into the magazine tube. So if you have a one-piece design, you can't have something going in to eliminate that catch point. And why that's important is when you extend more than 2 rounds in a double stack, the follower ends up in this extension body. So when the follower goes to go back to the magazine, it can catch on the magazine body and cause a fill to feed. So
Wow.
all our different extensions have that. And so that's something that really separates us from the rest of the crowd there. And so we've got some really, really fun things coming on that topic. Um, Number one selling product for us. So we do them for some of the micro guns. So we got the 365. I think you got to hold this at the show, Aaron, but really we focus on ergonomics here and ideal grip. I saw you guys talking about grip in some podcasts. I'm a firm believer that grip, 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 grip when it comes to matter before
100%.
round count, before, I mean, it's all about grip. So really we focus on giving you that perfect grip. And so this is our number one selling SKU right now is the +3 extension on our website. We do buy Sig Mags through distribution and then make the extension. We're waiting on the before reference litigation before we go ahead and make mags here. Um, and then, for us, what we're most known for, per se, is our AK-47 mags. So got a couple slab side fun ones here. This guy's upside down on me. But we do some Cerakote kind of one-offs. Some of them are regulars for us, but we have our own um, steel reinforced speed lifts, steel reinforced lugs. These are considered by many to be as durable or more durable than Circle 10 mags. I can tell you factually, in several areas, they're certainly more durable than Circle 10 mags, lighter weight, and by far the most compatible AK magazine that the world's ever seen, not just the US. So we did some really unique things in the rear lug area. So these all have lifetime warranties. As we mentioned there, one of the cool stories on the front end was when we came out with Gen 1, the rear lugs, we only gave the option of having a liner, lined reinforcement, and that passed everyone's testing that you know has earned a voice, and the ordnance guys and the different YouTube guys, and anyone that we had tested. We had over 100,000 rounds through these before we ever sold one. When I came out with the product, there was a small YouTube channel called Spent Brass that uh, got the mags. They actually bought them locally from us in Phoenix when they saw it came out, and they designed a test after not being able to break it intentionally to break our magazines, which was a 6-foot drop test, holding the muzzle of the rifle and dropping the rifle to where this area of the magazine would impact against a concrete wall. So, being an AK consumer at that point in my life, being frustrated by others' claims of you can't put steel in the feed lifts, you can't, yet the communist countries had, um, whether that's Magpul or others. And so instead of fighting with that party, I decided, you know what, I can add more steel reinforcement back here. So um, that's what we did. So that's where the Elite Series and our Mill Series now has that solid machined rear lug area. So you pay more for it, but they all come with lifetime warranties. Anything that says mag at the front end has a lifetime warranty with our products. And the only rear lug that's ever been broken by a user was a guy out coyote hunting. In his own words, he's over 6 feet tall and over 300 pounds, and he tripped and fell in face plant and hit the back of his mag. And he was actually calling us to buy another 10-pack of mags and just mentioned that to me. And I'm like, dude, that's a warranty right there. We're giving you a free one. So that's kind of fun on that front.
Yeah.
Um, as far as other extensions and products go, we're headed right now. So we have a whole line of magazine adapters coming out. So these give you the ideal grip with like the 365 mags, the Glock 26 mags. So these guys, you really got to feel them to understand kind of what we did there, but I think you probably got to touch a couple at the event. We have extensions coming out for the Sig Macro 17 round mags, taking them to, we were going to say +3, now we kind of forced to call them +4s. Sorry, they will be harder to load because anyone that's messed with macro mags already knows they're 17-ish round magazines.
17-ish.
And so, other extensions in the work for us that we're super pumped about is our whole ecosystem of Glock magazines. So we're doing complete Glock mags. Those will be out in about 30 to 45 days. So you'll be able to buy products like this as a complete SKU. So this is for the Glock 26. It'll be available as a 10 round and a 17 round magazine. And also there'll be a 15 round variant, but it will include the adapters with it.
Wait, so
Lifetime
did you have
warranties
that
on
at the
all of
show? Because why am I blanking on having seen these before?
them. They were there. I wasn't really emphasizing them. We're kind of planning, we're trickling out information selectively about what we're doing with the Glocks.
Okay. About to say,
So
I feel like
our
you
tooling,
held something back. I feel hurt. This is me
it's,
communicating.
I don't, and also you're kind of also candidly going through pitches and like, you kind of forget what you told one person that was
Yeah,
another,
yeah,
but
yeah.
so, so we'll have +6s out for the Glock. 19s in about 60 days is our current timeline. Um,
Plus
you'll be able to get those as
six.
complete. So this will be, so what's cool is when we came out with our M&P and our VP9, our first double stack extensions, um, some lessons learned from that time to now is those ones don't fit in limited class gauges. They don't work with most Mac wells.
For
And so
competition.
now, yep, now our new ones will fit anything the factory magazines fit. So,
Fair.
um,
Let me know
so
when
if
you
the
do one for
factory
the
magazines
17.
fit, they'll fit. I'm sorry?
I said, let me know when you get one done for the 17.
That's honestly, as I get closer here and we've talked with certain distributors and retailers, the first question that pops up is I didn't really have that on my bucket, like a short list for this year. And now I like lose sleep at night over how fast can I make one for the 17,
Right.
especially like our law enforcement dealers and sales guys.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, that's,
aesthetically,
yeah,
yeah,
what you got?
it's going to be that we want to have the whole ecosystem. So really, what you're going to see from us from Glock is going to be limited capacity, standard capacity, included packaged with extensions, included packaged with sleeves, all at price points that people are going to absolutely love. I mean, for example, like this is a going to be a 17 round magazine, lifetime warranty, steel reinforced, proprietary follower, 17.7 spring, all these upgrades. Really some cool material selections we did with the base plates where it's just incredible strength wise. With the adapter to make it fit the hand perfectly, you're going to be like an MSRP of under $35.
Golly. Now,
So
you said something about aesthetically. What were you getting at with that?
yeah, so this is our first Glock extension tooling done. So this isn't for sale yet, but really, again, competing with ourselves. I can't show the pistol, but in the pistol, this looks like a completion of the pistol, kind of like our 365. But just how the looks came out here is just awesome. Staying away from the Glock, you know, trade dress issues, but still making it look, like it's part of the pistol. And so we're not chasing. I got nothing against the agencies and the tyrants of the world and what their markets are. That's not who I'm trying to be. We're looking at like our extensions for this plus three for the for the 43 with the spring US made is going to be under $20.
That's gonna be. Oh,
So
that's so good. Under $20.
pass every drop
What?
test. Yeah, and
Th-
so like I mean one of the like
Drop test though.
here drop tests all day, man. I mean,
Yeah.
so because of our design, we have 4 points of engagement. It's a little hard to show quickly, right? But basically, there's 4 points of where these magazines retain. So this is the six again for the 19. So our competition's relying on a set screw or a stamped piece of metal, one, and then just the hold on tight to the rails, right? You put them on, you're familiar with what I'm talking about. Because of our leading edge, it's a point of retainment. This force from the spring button, because we still use the spring button in our design, holding it together. We have interlocks that we have patented between the inner and outer housing. And this back lip, because it comes in from the bottom, is retaining this back section here. So there's 4 different points of engagement. So when you talk about drop tests, nothing in the world can touch us from a durability standpoint. So I believe within 2 to 3 years, we're going to see us as the de facto duty use extensions. It's just a matter of us making the products to support them.
Excellent. I love to see it. So, what I would love to do with you, and you tell me if you have time or you got to do it tomorrow, is if we could, whenever we hang up this live stream, and let this live in its own place because we can't show guns on stream. Like that's just the rules of YouTube. We want to live on YouTube as long as possible, so we will follow that rule. The other rules, maybe not, but is if we could actually show it a little bit and then we could post a standalone video just kind of showing what you got because I think especially for the people who were here earlier and had to dip out, I really want them to see some of the cool stuff you brought out and that's coming to market. So if they were thinking about buying a couple P mags, maybe they'll wait. Maybe they'll wait on you a little bit.
Can always
So
have more, right? But no,
yeah,
I
I
appreciate that.
guess,
Yeah.
but it adds up. So yeah, so definitely, man, this has been a really great conversation. We've been going for an hour and 43 minutes. Thank you so much for sharing, of course, some of your life, some of your family, some of your thoughts, and of course your philosophy and how you approach business, and of course helping us kind of parse through some of the issues with the Sig lawsuit. And obviously, we're not necessarily here to pick sides, but ultimately, I think it's your opinion that Sig should probably lose that. Am I right? Are you?
My opinion as a non-attorney is absolutely six patents should be invalidated.
As an, obviously this isn't legal advice, and consult a
Yeah,
lawyer.
I go as far as adding to that in the magazine world. The other big magazine topic is shield arms with PSA and the 43X patent. I also believe that patent should be invalidated as an opinion as a non-attorney
Gosh,
who's can't give
I
legal
forgot
advice
about that.
and that's caused So I mean it is it these patent examiners, they're not gun people. They don't know guns, and you think about that as the context of it. But yeah, certain people get patents to discourage competition, other ones do to protect innovation.
Fair enough, dude. Can you just let people know how to support your business or follow you or follow what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah, xtechtactical.com is our website. We're on Instagram, and that's primarily the main social media we use. We have plans to utilize our YouTube a lot more. It's just a matter of executing it as we grow our team here to support our growth. So definitely YouTube there. You can definitely, if you want to follow our products right now, we are scheduled to release a total of 86 unique SKUs. Some will be variants of other, so call it 30 core products with some different variants by the end of next year. So the best way to know about that is to sign up for our email newsletter. Playing around with some ideas to kind of give early access to folks and let you help me spread the word about our products. So definitely sign up for our email newsletter on the website. It's the best way to know what we're up to.
All right. Well, we actually had somebody add into the live chat that we should do some throwing tests. So if we end up getting to test some of your stuff, I will fully load it. I'm gonna chuck it as far as I can onto some cement and see what happens. So,
Ask if you know Hank about that. Ask him about those. I asked him to do that, and he did it. So
did he get it on video?
he did. I don't know
We
where the
got to go
video
watch
is
that.
anymore, but he got it.
We got to
He
go
got
watch
it.
that. Dude,
Yeah.
this has been really fun. We're gonna go ahead and quickly sign out. So thank you so much for being here, man. And let's get to that part. So, guys, thank you so much for watching or listening. This is Costly Conversations. This is one of the final episodes of Costly Conversations in the branding. We're gonna kind of rebrand it a little bit. Not that the conversations are going away. They'll be here forever, and we'll continue to have long form conversations with people who are interesting and amazing, and that you should definitely hear from. But we are going to spice things up a little bit. If you can see the hat, it says Gun Club Radio. And that's kind of the direction that we're going to go. A little bit more education, a lot of conversation. And of course, it's all for you, the people. Do me a favor. If you watch this or you were listening on podcast, please share this out. We're trying to do a lot of cool things in the near future, and really letting people know what we're doing. If you think this is worth their time, is the best way you can support. I mean, shoot, this is really great, especially for guys like Jeremy who are trying to innovate in the space. And we're seeing comments coming in even right now saying, "Can't wait to try out the Glock mags." I can't wait to try out the Glock mags, and I don't get excited for a lot of this stuff just because this is what I do. I do gun reviews on Armed Atlas YouTube channel, but ultimately I'm excited. I'm excited for the future of this channel, the future of the podcast overall. And of course, there's a QR code in the lower right hand corner. And if you can't see the QR code because you're on podcast, go to the show notes and description, locals.com or armedatlas.locals.com. That's where you can go to support what we do. I'm not asking for your money, but if you want to support in that way, cool. You just make sure you create an account and pretty much just follow the page over there. When you do that, it makes it a little bit easier for me to communicate with you. You can see when I put out new videos that are exclusive to that page. And man, I feel like I've been going on for super long. For one of the final times, thank you so much for watching or listening. My name is Aaron, and of course, keep it costly.